Superheroes have descended upon New York City for a new multi-million-dollar exhibit, Marvel's Avengers Station.
And I had a chance to speak to the comic book legend and former president of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee. Take a look. Over the last 7 decades, you've created some of the most memorable and iconic superheroes in the world. Spider-Man, the Hulk, the Avengers, the X-Men. Did you have any idea when you were creating them that they would have such a worldwide appeal?
Not at all. I just hoped that they would sell well enough that I'd keep my job and be able to pay the rent.
I think you've done that. Well, right now we're here at the Avengers Station in New York City. Tell us, what will people experience here?
I never thought in writing these stories that it would turn into something like this. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. They're going to see all the Marvel characters, all the Avengers, but they're going to see the scientific basis behind each one. Things that I never knew. For instance, when I did the Hulk, I had to have some reason why a guy would turn into the Hulk. So I said he was hit with a gamma ray. I wouldn't know a gamma ray if I saw it, but it sounded scientific. Well, they have a whole exhibit showing how a man could turn into a Hulk scientifically. They have taken everything from the comics and giving it a scientific basis and a scientific legitimacy, so to speak. I think every young person who walks out of this exhibit, having seen it, is going to say, I want to be a scientist. You know, I think this exhibit will end up being New York's top attraction for visitors. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
So let's talk about some of the movies. You know, the Marvel movies have commanded billions at the box office. The Avengers are the third highest grossing film of all time. So how does that make you feel? Besides good, how does that make you feel that you've created such more than just paying the rent?
Well, I wish I were the guy who did the movies, because they're geniuses, you know. But it makes me feel wonderful that these characters have lasted so long, and that in creating them, I tried to give them problems in their personal lives. So you don't just worry about them in their superhero identity, but what about personally? What about the girl they're in love with that they can't get? What about Iron Man with his weak heart? What about... Try to make them less than perfect, and even though they're superheroes, find something that the reader or the audience can relate to and say, gee, that could be me, I have the same problem.
Two great characters you also created, the first two black superheroes, the Black Panther and the Falcon. How important was it for you to create those characters, and did you receive any backlash for doing it?
Oh, no backlash at all. I love the Black Panther and the Falcon. In fact, I'm hoping that they're making a Black Panther movie. I think they're working on one now. And, oh no, he's one of my favorite characters. I love the idea we went against type. He seemed to live in a village in Africa with thatched hats, but underground was the most modern city, and he's one of the top scientists in the world.
When you were growing up, who did you look up to for hope and inspiration?
Just about everything I read. I loved Sherlock Holmes. I loved Edgar Allan Poe. I loved all the things that I read. I was a voracious reader. I want to be a writer like that. I want to have those kind of adventures.
So did you run around the house, you know, acting like you had superpowers and jumping off furniture or anything like that?
Not that much, but what I used to do, I used to draw little cartoons. I couldn't draw well. I did stick figures of people running and fighting each other and so forth.
If you could pick any superpower, what would it be?
You won't believe this. The one superpower that I think would be best, I could not give to a superhero because it's not visual. It's nothing you could see. But I think it would be luck. If you were 100% lucky, this interview would go beautifully, right? You buy a lottery ticket, you win. You say, I like that girl, she'd fall in love with you. Luck has to be the greatest power in the world.
I know you get this question all the time, and it's sort of like picking a favorite child, but who is your favorite character of all time, and it doesn't have to be a superhero?
The Scarlet Pimpernel. There was a movie years ago with an actor called Leslie Howard. He, to me, was the first superhero. During the French Revolution, he was English. He went over to France and he saved a lot of people from the guillotine. But he pretended he was a fop. Everybody thought he was just a useless guy who was more interested in the ruffles on his shirt than anything else. But they didn't know he was really the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Seems like a lot of the characters that you've created have taken on social conscious issues, you know, politically powered issues, like the X-Men. You know, you tackle things like diversity, discrimination, race relations. Is it important that your characters do more than just entertain?
Absolutely. If you're just doing shallow entertainment, that's fine and you'll make some money. But if you have the audience's interest and you're able to entertain them, why not put some moral goodness to the thing? Why not give a message? Remember the X-Men? The whole idea of the X-Men was to show you mustn't hate people because they're different, you know? And that came across. I'm very proud of the X-Men. But everything that anybody does, anybody who has the eye and ear of the public should use that position to try to do a little good with it, you know? And if you could make people just friendlier to each other, that would be a great thing.
What do you hope your lasting legacy will one day be?
That he wrote some good stories that made people happy.
Wow, that's incredible, Shannon.
Yeah, he was so much fun and just very humble and nonchalant about the whole thing.
And so clear-minded and present. I loved it.
Definitely.
He seemed so engaged.
And it was so exciting being there amongst all the superheroes and standing next to Iron Man. He's huge, and the costumes. It was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, look at you, rubbing shoulders with Stan Lee.
Well, I try. Well, if you want to check out the Marvel's Avengers Station, it will be open at Discovery Times Square until January 5th.
Great, and you're watching Arise Entertainment 360.